As we are nearing the final days of Pesach, and we know that final days of Pesach, the first days of Pesach, the first days of Passover are connected to the past and the effects of the past in the present, in every generation, every day in every generation, every day in our lives. We have to experience what it means to leave the place of constriction and limitations, a place of exile, a place of Mitzrayim, a Metzer of limitations. And the final days of Pesach, especially Achar Shal Pesach and the diaspora, the final days of Pesach are connected to the time of Mashiach, to the time of redemption. So just to say a few words about Mashiach and to understand a little bit something deeper. So there seems to be in almost a paradoxical unfolding with the revealings of the teachings of Chassidus and the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov that began in the beginning of the 1700s. So beginning of the 1700s, there was the great Hasidic, the founder of the Hasidic movement, Rabbi Baal Shem Tov, and through the Baal Shem Tov and his students, the Hasidic movement became a dominant force within Jewish spirituality and revealing of the oneness of Hashem in this world. So we see something very interesting within the teachings of Chassidus, and we'll start with the teachings of the way it's explored in the actual teachings of the Baal Shem Tovs. So the Baal Shem Tov himself wrote very little. Wrote very, very little. There's very few things that we actually have from the Baal Shem Tov in his own words. But his students, we have some of his teachings from the students. And we have a book called Sivasa Rivash and Kasa Shem Tov, which is the two most famous books of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, which are collection from his students. These are teachings that were originally they were said in the vernacular in Yiddish, and then they were translated, Kal Torah writes, in Igar's Kodesh. So these are authentic teachings, but in a different language. We also have two other texts, prominent texts. We have some more, but the two other prominent texts is from his student, the Talmudist Yaakov Yosef Plumnoy, and there he collects many teachings of his master, and he writes Shemaiti Mori, I heard from my teacher, I heard from my master, and he quotes the Baal Shem Tov. We also have the Baal Shem Tov's grandson, the Degel Machan Ephraim, who was a son of Avil, the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. And he also quotes Shemati Madoni Avizikni, I heard from my grandfather. Now, if you look in the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov himself, whether it's in Keser Shem Tov in this collection of text, or in Sivas Rivash, or in the Talmudis, or in the teachings of the Degel, or by some of the other students, the Maranaim and other students of the Baal Shem Tov, Pinson of Cards, Michael Zlotchev, some of the students, you'll see that there's very little conversation, or very little focus on the future. Everything is focused on the present. So even when it talks about Mashiach, redemption, and it talks about the world being in a state of redemption, there's a deeper conversation, or a conversation that happens much more, is about Karva Nafshi Geulah, the personal inner redemption that a person has, or like the Maranaim speaks about, the inner Mashiach, the inner quality of a redeemer within our own consciousness, the part of self that's whole, that's perfect, that's in a state of connection, there's a state of unity with the Creator at all times, and is not damaged and not affected by any actions that we do. There's a part of our perfection and the revealing of that part of self, or feeling the Kivras Hashem, the unity, the connection, the drawing of closeness that we feel close to Hashem. And in the teachings of Baal Shem Tov, the focus is always about the person himself or herself right in this very moment. The general idea of the Baal Shem Tov was almost like the democratization of spirituality, which means that everyone has access, and this is what the teachings of Baal Shem Tov and the Baal Shem Tov draw down this light, that everyone has access to the highest level of spirituality. And everyone could become potentially, and everyone will become in the future, a tzaddik, and therefore a person can connect to that at any moment. And just like it's true on the level of nefesh, in the state of consciousness, that every person has access to the highest levels possible within their soul, And there's a democratization, which means there's accessibility for everyone if we just choose. And in our state of our consciousness, the same thing also this is true in time. That it's not about the future, that sheyave, that it will come in the future tense, and will be in the future, but something that's lived in the present moment. That when we talk about Mashiach, we talk about redemption, we talk about redeeming, we talk about the state of being in a redemptive state of consciousness. We're talking about being that in this very present moment. Famously, there's a story. It's told of one of the students of the Baal Shem Tov, desired to go to Eretz Yisrael, desired to go to the land of Israel. And the Baal Shem Tov wanted him to stay in Mezhebush, to stay in the city, in the town that the Baal Shem Tov lived, to be there next to him. But he had a strong desire. And the Baal Shem Tov told him, before you go to Eretz Yisrael, before you go to the land of Israel, you should immerse yourself in the mikveh. And so that's what he did. He's a student of his master. That's what he did. He went into the mikveh, into the ritual bath. And as he got under and he immersed himself, he had a vision. And the vision was that he is floating out of the town of Mezhebush. And he's floating upwards. And he leaves the town and the city limits, and then he leaves the Ukraine, and then he's flying through, and he's in the Mediterranean, and he's finally getting to Eretz Yisrael, and he finally gets to Eretz Yisrael, to the Holy Land, and he sees Yerushalayim, and he gets closer to Yerushalayim. Then he sees that the Beis Hamikdash is still standing. And the Beis Hamikdash, the temple is radiant, full of light, and he's drawn to this light of the Beis Hamikdash, to the temple, and he's drawn closer and closer. And he finally goes into the Azara, and then he goes into Kodesh, into the Holy, and then he goes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he goes to the holiest of holiest, it's the highest place in the world that he could be. And then he goes to the holiest object in the world, which is the Aron, which is the Ark of the Covenant, which contains the holy Luchas. And he opens up the Aron, and he gives a deep sigh, and he cries out, and he said, where are the Luchas? The Luchas are gone. He looks into the Aron, and he doesn't see the Luchas. He doesn't see the holiest of the objects. And a voice comes to him. This is all in his meditative state, being immersed under the water. A voice comes to him and says, oh, you're looking for the luchas, you're looking for the holiest of objects in this world. Oh, that's found in Mezhebush. That's found by your teacher. That's found by the Baal Shem Tov. And that was a very strong point and a strong teaching, and it's very strongly stressed in Torah's Chassidus and the teachings of Chassidus, and especially in the early revealing of Torah's Chassidus and the earliest teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and of his students. And same thing also in the teachings of the Maggid, same idea. You find this for very little conversation about the future, but always about the present. On the other hand, when the light of the Baal Shem Tov came down to this world, it also created tremendous amount of kisufim, tremendous amount of desire and longing for Mashiach, for the future. And this was revealed through the students of the Baal Shem Tov even stronger, and the students of the Baal Shem Tov, through the Maggid students, a tremendous kisufim, gaguyim, a tremendous amount of longing and desire and yearning for the ultimate redemption. And this seems to be, and then eventually the students of the Maggid, some of the great students of Madeline Vitebsker and Mark Karlisker and some of the students, they went up to Eretz Yisrael, and they made an aliyah with many hundreds of families. And there was this strong desire. Even the Alter Rebbe wanted to go to the Masayim was there, and the Alter Rebbe himself wanted to also go to Eretz Yisrael. There was a strong desire, Kisufim, to go, to get to the land of Israel, to get closer and closer to the place. So there was also, on the one hand, seems to be very almost a paradoxical statement. You see this also very strongly in the life and the teachings of the Rebbe, certainly in the last few years, that there's a tremendous amount of kisufim and gaguyim for Mashiach, and a longing for Mashiach, and a waiting for Mashiach, and the loygalis, and crying out that we need Mashiach, we need redemption. And on the other hand, understanding you have to live with Mashiach, live in the state of Mashiach, live in the consciousness of Mashiach, and live it if Mashiach is already here. So these two things seem to be almost contradictory, and they both arise at the same time period with the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. And then there was an arising that was affected throughout the entire world. It was felt in Italy with Ramchal and his students, and his Chavraya also had a strong kisufim to go to Eretz Yisrael, and the Gra in Lithuania, the Leo Vilna, and his students also went to Eretz Yisrael with a tremendous amount of kisufim and to get closer to the place of redemption. So it seems that as almost these two things almost are contradictory, it seems that if you're longing for a future, that means you're not living with that truth in the present. And if you're living with that truth in the present and it's already here, so then why you're longing for a future? So how does exactly this work? That these 2 points almost seem contradictory, and how does it work? So in general, time and the sequence of time and the linear progression of time, and of course, time flows cyclically and flows spirally and flows in different ways of viewing time. In the very linear way of looking at time, there's a past, there's a present, and there's a future. The past is, and this is connected to some of the ikrim of the Bala ikrim, of there is revelation, which is the past, Sinai, the revelation of Sinai, and then there's the creation, which is the past, and the revelation, which is the continuous unfolding of the Torah that's occurring, and then there's redemption, creation, revelation, redemption. So there's a past, there's a present, and a future. And if you left, say, for example, if you were living 1,000 years ago, so or before that, so the revealing of the future, in the one possibility can always be Achishana, can be immediately, but in the form, the way the future will be revealed, be ita, and it's the right time, in the unfolding of time. So the future redemptive state of the world is a faraway future from that period of time. Of course, there's an echo of that understanding and of that belief, of that connection to the future, but it's a future that's in a distant state. And when we understand this, it can be understood why the Gemara, when the Gemara talks about in Perek HaChelek, the Gemara in Sanhedrin has a whole pair that deals a lot with Olam Haba and Tchias HaMesim and the resurrection of dead. So if you look through the Gemara, it says that resurrection, the idea of Tchias HaMesim, which means the awakening, the alivening of all matter into life, all of matter becomes alive. All existence becomes relived and shows and expresses itself as a living thing, with all the bodies that ever existed. This idea of the articulation of this resurrection, even though it's been a Torah, of course it's been a Torah, and someone that says it's not been a Torah, but the idea is that if the revealing of this idea of Tchias HaMesim, even though it's encoded and it's clearly says within the Torah, and there's many psukim that speak about Tchias HaMesim, allude to that Tchias HaMesim, but it's not overtly expressed Tchias HaMesim. Where does it become more overtly expressed? Precisely during a later period of time, during the time of the prophets, and particularly towards the end of the first Beis HaMikdash, towards the end of the process of Nevi'im, especially with the Nevuah of Yecheskel and with Yeshaya, with Isaiah and Ezekiel. This is the dry bones. This is a lot of the ideas of the idea of Tchias HaMesim. So why has it become revealed at that period of time? Because in a more overt way, in a more conversational way, because we're getting closer at that time. We're getting closer to the future. In the earlier times, we were much further from the future. As we're getting closer in the forms of Be'ita, the time in its time period, we were getting closer. But if you lived the earlier period, it was further away. So therefore, there was an echo over there. There was an allusion to this idea. There was a hint to the idea, but it didn't come to the forefront. The same thing also is also it's also with the Rambam. Maimonides, the Rambam famously canonizes and creates 13 principles of faith. Yud Gimel Ikim. And this happens in the 1200s. And one of the Yud Gimel Ikim is Amanim Mashiach. I believe in Mashiach, and I believe that there will be Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead. And at that period of time, that's when the Rambam codified and sort of became canonized. These are the principles of faith, the Klali Amun, the principle Ikri Amun, the fundamentals of faith. And if a person, and then in that same time period, there was others like Chazar Kraskis and Yosef Alboy, not maybe on the same caliber of the Rambam, that argued and said that maybe it's 5, or maybe there's 3, or maybe there's none, different about the concept whether there are ikrim, whether there are fundamentals of faith. But you see that it becomes canonized, and then not only becomes canonized, it becomes absolutely an ikr. And if someone denies one of these things, even if he doesn't know that it's true, but Nebuch HaBikoros is Eichad HaBikoros, and Chaim Brisker says that even a person that doesn't know that it's true and doesn't know that doesn't know about this, is still considered someone that's a heretic, someone that doesn't believe in it. Why? Because as we were moving closer to the echoes of Mashiach, and especially in that period of time, if you're a little familiar, especially in the 1240s, which is the beginning of the 6,000 year, the 5,000 year, which was also a very big renaissance of Mashiach and the idea of redemption was very close, and it felt very much more imminent. That's why there became this revealing. So as we're moving closer, the desire for Mashiach and the yearning for Mashiach and the ideas of Mashiach, and that it becomes an ikr, it becomes a principle of faith, and it becomes something that is revealed overtly in the prophets and then canonized later in halachic text. Because what we're saying is, as we're getting closer to it, the truth of that idea becomes much more revealed. So what this means, and therefore the desire becomes much stronger for it, and also the reality of that truth, of that future, becomes much more revealed. And it also works the other way. Not only is it becoming stronger, but as we're getting closer to the future starts being revealed more in the present. The end starts to be revealed more in the process. The end, the end is revealed in the process of getting there. And therefore, we live from Mashiach. And these two truths, therefore, are simultaneously true. Both the awareness that is already here, and on some level, we just have to open our eyes. And it's possible to connect to that already from the times of Baal Shem Tov, reveal that idea that Karvan Nafshi there's a way to enter into that state of consciousness, to reveal the Chiddush B'Nefesh, to reveal the highest levels of our soul that's redemptive, that's beyond struggle, that's beyond hurt and beyond darkness, the place of perfection and light and wholeness that we have within our soul and can be revealed in that way. And yet simultaneously also draws out the tremendous amount of gaguyim, tremendous amount of desire and longing to be connected to that. And these are the two truths that come simultaneously. And the reason why these two truths come simultaneously is not only because the present moment is much closer to the future, which will create, because we're much closer to the future, a certain level of gaguyim, a certain level of desire and longing. Because when you're talking about something that's very far away, something that's a very distant, and something also within our consciousness. The Even HaEzer speaks about Leisachmet, a person doesn't have a desire, and he says it's like a simpleton. That analogy would be like a simpleton desiring to marry the queen. That's not part of his consciousness. That's part of his world. But he can have a desire for something else, because we only desire things. We only desire things that we can see, things that are sort of tangible to us, things that are within our orbit. And the same thing also, the kisufim, that's what I'm saying, the kisufim and the gaguyim, the longing and the desiring and the connecting to Mashiach. The idea already that animamin is a fundamental of faith, is an ikr, and the idea that the idea of resurrection of Tchias HaMesim becomes revealed in the Nevi'im, and then certainly in the times of Baal Shem Tov, it becomes more closer and closer as we're getting closer and closer to the future. The future, we feel more connected to the future. So the present is being pulled to the future, and we feel more connected. And therefore, as we feel it's part of our orbit, part of our life, part of our reality, it creates a stronger desire because we're almost there. It's like, before a person, analogy, let's say before a person meets the person that they're going to marry, they don't have any gaguyim or ksufim for that person. They don't have any longing and yearning for that person because they never met the person. But as they meet the person and they're about to get married, and literally the day before you get married, it brings out and draws out even deeper level of kisufim, deeper levels of longing. That's why the students of the Baal Shem Tov, and it's felt within the entire world, that this kisufim, we want Mashiach now, and desire for Mashiach and a longing for Mashiach is because it's very close, and it's very close. Therefore, we're almost there. On the other hand, and this is where it gets the other side of that, is that the movement is not only from the present to the future, and therefore we're getting closer to the future. Therefore, we have more longing and more desire for a future, but also it also works in reverse, which means that the future starts to become revealed in the present. As we're getting closer to the future, which the future is moving to the present, also the light of the future starts becoming also revealed more into the present. There's a reshimah, there's an imprint, just like there can be an imprint from the past to the future. You do something and then you have an imprint of that reality that you experience in your present life, let's say as a memory or an imprint into your consciousness, or maybe even something that's physical, that you're retaining something within your body of an experience that you had in the past. So just like that works in terms of the past to the present, it also works from the future into the present. There becomes an imprint of the future into the present, the reshima from the future into the present. And because there's an imprint of the future into the present, that allows us to have access to that reality that is in the future, even in the present. that even the tachlis becomes revealed in the talich, the end becomes revealed in the process. And that's why it also opens us up as we're getting closer to the future, that not only is the present moving to the future, but the future is now becoming more revealed in the present. It also opens us up to have experiences of what it means to live like Mashiach, to live from an inner place of redemption, to live from an inner place that you are redeemed, that you're already whole, that you're already perfect. And that's a different way of relating to life. We can relate to our lives and the struggles in our life, that I'm in a state of imperfection, I'm in a state of brokenness, and I'm trying to create wholeness. I'm trying to get to a better place. I'm struggling with these emotions and I'm trying to get to a better place. Or we can think about ourselves, and that's the way we're correctly to think about ourselves in a Mashiach way, in a Mashiach life, in a Mashiach consciousness of living, is to understand that we are ready, our future is already revealed in our present. And just so if you saw last Shuvah, just like we say at the end of time, every soul will reach its perfection. Every soul reaches Olam Haba, because every soul will reach the state of a tzaddik, will be in a state of perfection. That perfection already becomes revealed in our present moment. And that's the access that we have at this time. That's the true democratization of spirituality, which means that we have access to the highest level of our consciousness, the highest level of our soul, which tzaddikim in the past may have worked very hard to get to that place. And we have now accessibility. They were reaching a state of their future within their life, but that came through a very hard work and a very hard struggle in order to reach that higher place, that you can reach a place of that wholeness, of that perfection, of that yichidah nefesh, that higher level of your consciousness, that level of Mashiach. Today, as we're nearing to the light of Mashiach and the future, the light of Mashiach, the Or Shivas Yom, the light of Mashiach becomes revealed within the present. We have access to those states, and we have to access them, and we have to live them and choose them. Choose to believe that we're already perfect. Choose to believe that we're already whole. Choose to believe that we're always in a state of dvekas, of connectivity with Hashem, and connectivity with the deeper levels of our soul and deeper levels of who we are in this world in the most authentic and real way. And as we live that way, that's the way we can express all our perfection, even in a place of imperfection, in a place that we're struggling. To come from a place of struggle, from a place of wholeness, and therefore the struggle is not a struggle; it's just a challenge that we're constantly dealing with. But it doesn't feel like there's two sides and it's a duality, and I'm one day better, one day worse. I'm coming from a place of oneness, a place that's beyond the binary, beyond the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and I'm rooted in the tree of life, the tree of perfection. I'm rooted in the place of Mashiach, of that energy of and the consciousness of Mashiach that hovers in the beginning of creation and shows up at the end of creation. And as the end is nearing, as we're entering into the time period that's closer to Mashiach, we're drawing from that light of the future into our present life. And that's the way we connect both with the level of deep yearning, deep ksufim, deep longing for the state of perfection, for the world to be healed, for all the wars to end, and everyone to be in a good state, and everyone and the other column das emes, like the Rambam writes, and everyone should know the true faith, the oneness of Hashem, like the Rambam writes in Hilchos Malachim. The Yachzu Kulam Das Emes, everyone will return to the Das Emes, the true faith of oneness of Hashem. And like the Rambam writes in Hilchos Chametz Matzah, the laws of when the Rambam speaks about the Seder, the Rambam says that what is Mitchila, how do we start Maschal Knus? How do we start the Seder? We should start with the opinion of conceptually, not action and actuality. Theoretically, we should start with the idea of Rav, to say that in the beginning we were idol worshipers, and then Kivan al Hashem drew us closely. Kivan lichude. The Kivan Ladas Emes, we were drawn to the true faith. The true faith means to recognize the oneness of Hashem, the oneness of the Creator within all of creation. May we speedily be revealed in our own lives in this present moment as we are, up until the time Mashiach comes, very soon, to experience that in our own life, and may we zeicha to actually experience this in the entirety of all of creation, to see the ultimate with the revealing of Mashiach Tzidkenu.